Today, we're diving into a really fascinating idea from the publication The Spiritual Seek. It's something that completely challenges how we usually think about depression. We're going to explore this concept that maybe, just maybe, some forms of deep sadness aren't a sign that something's broken, but a sign that something profound is trying to be born.
Right out of the gate, the source material hits us with this huge question, and it's really the perfect place to start. It forces us to pause and ask, is every deep, dark period of despair a pathology that we need to cure? Or what if, in certain cases, it's a signal of something else happening entirely? You know, a sign that our consciousness is expanding in a way that our current psychological maps just can't chart yet.
So, what are we actually talking about here? Well, the Spiritual Seek gives it a name: spiritual depression. And as you can see, this isn't just feeling down, it's an ontological crisis. That's a big phrase, but it basically means it's not tied to losing your job or a breakup. It's this deep, soul-level questioning of everything, the very nature of reality, of who you are, and what your place is in the grand scheme of things. And so the source doesn't frame this experience as a disorder at all. Instead, it's presented as a journey. A really difficult one, for sure, but a journey nonetheless.
But here's the paradox, right? This incredible journey of awakening often kicks off when the very foundations of your reality, everything you thought you knew, start to completely fall apart. It feels less like waking up and more like breaking down.
The article breaks this whole process down into 4 interconnected dimensions. It's kind of like an archetypal descent, what mystics have called the dark night of the soul. First, there's the dissolution of your constructed reality. You start seeing through societal goals, the big house, the fancy job, as a kind of consensus trance. Then, number 2, when those old goals crumble, you're left facing this existential void. It's terrifying. Third, your own identity starts to unravel. You realize the you you've always known is really just a collection of roles, stories, and masks. And finally, from that empty space, a deep, painful longing for transcendence emerges. This ache for a connection to something bigger that feels just out of reach.
Okay, so this is probably the most important question. How is this ontological crisis any different from clinical depression? Well, the source draws some really crucial distinctions.
So let's look at this side by side. The source explains that psychological depression is often biographical, right? It's tied to things that happened in your life, loss, trauma. It often leads to a constriction of your awareness, like the world gets smaller. And the goal of treatment is usually to get you back to functioning normally. But spiritual depression, in this view, is seen as evolutionary. It's your consciousness trying to grow. It's an expansion of awareness that becomes so overwhelming it leads to this raw, heightened sensitivity. And here's the key. The goal isn't to go back to who you were. It's to transform and integrate this new, much wider state of consciousness. This quote, which the article cites, just perfectly captures the whole idea. The suffering here isn't coming from some inner darkness or a chemical deficit. It's coming from an overwhelming flood of awareness. It's like too much light pouring into a container that's just not big enough to hold it yet. The pain is literally your consciousness outgrowing its old, comfortable structures.
So, if the nature of this crisis is so different, it naturally leads to the next question the source asks. How well do our conventional approaches actually work for this kind of experience?
This quote from psychiatrist R.D. Laing really sets the stage for this next part. I mean, think about it. If the whole awakening process involves seeing the flaws and illusions in our societal norms, is the goal really to just adjust back to those very norms? The source suggests that sometimes what looks like an illness is actually a very healthy response to a pretty sick environment.
And here's where that mismatch can show up in psychotherapy, according to the article. A therapist might accidentally pathologize what is a legitimate spiritual experience, just labeling it as a symptom. The focus might be on getting you to fit back into a society that you now see as kind of hollow. Healing is often viewed as this straight line of progress, but spiritual growth is messy. It's cyclical. It goes backward and forward. And finally, traditional therapy might reinforce the idea of a separate individual self when the whole crisis is about those boundaries dissolving.
The source also touches on the potential limitations of medication, specifically in this context. And this is so important. It's not a critique of medication for clinical depression, but a specific consideration for this different kind of journey. The idea is that by suppressing the very difficult symptoms, medication might unintentionally hit the pause button on the whole transformative process. That emotional numbing could block the transcendent states you need to integrate. It can also reinforce a purely materialist, it's just your brain chemistry view of the problem, and maybe foster dependency when the goal is to build your own inner resources.
Okay, so after laying out the nature of the crisis and why the old maps might fail, the source doesn't just leave us there. It shifts focus toward what can actually help, these holistic pathways toward healing and integration. So, first up, turn inward, but with curiosity, not with fear. This means using practices like meditation, being willing to look at your own shadow, and really listening to the wisdom your body is holding. Second, find a new, bigger story. You can do this by connecting your personal struggle to these timeless, universal patterns, like the hero's journey, which you see in myths all over the world. It helps you see you're not just lost, you're on a path.
Number 3 is to lean on ancient wisdom. Traditions like Stoicism, Buddhism, and Taoism have been developing sophisticated tools for navigating these exact existential questions for thousands of years. The answers are there.
Fourth, find the right kind of connection. This journey can be incredibly isolating, so it's crucial to find your tribe, whether that's through nature, serving others, or finding spiritual friends who just get it.
Fifth is creative expression. The source points out that sometimes words just fail. Art, music, writing, even dance. These can become a bridge to help you process and integrate experiences that are way beyond ordinary language.
And finally, number 6, and this is so important, you have to ground the whole journey in your physical life. This is not some floaty, abstract thing. It means creating stability through a daily rhythm, good nutrition, and just simplifying your life.
When you put all of this together, it leads to this fundamental shift in perspective, a complete reframing of what you're going through.
This final quote from the article by Khalil Gibran just beautifully sums it all up. The pain isn't a sign that you're dying or decaying. It's the necessary, powerful, and, yes, often agonizing process of growth. It is the sound of the hard shell of your old self cracking open to let something newer and way more authentic emerge.
And so that leaves us with this final, powerful question to sit with. The whole article is really an invitation to consider this one possibility. What if the path to true healing isn't about running from the darkness or medicating it away, but about having the courage to turn toward it, to listen to it, and to discover the profound wisdom that it's been holding for you all along?